to the I to the N to the G. Ling Ling, you forgot your bling bling. You don't show love and support in public. You might as well just ask me to take off my top and shake my tatas.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel that we're going to be reviewing is Robocop 3. This is a sequel that maybe you'll look back and say, oh, Robocop 3. But the cast of this movie, legendary. You have Nancy Allen back, Rip Torn, Stephen Root, Bradley Whitford. You even have a young Jeff Garland, Shane Black, and so many more. And of course, you have this week's guest, actress Jodi Long, who has a small role in this movie, Nico's mom. She has a lot to tell about her experience from Robocop 3. And then also, she recently won a Daytime Emmy for her outstanding supporting actress in a daytime fiction program for her role on Netflix's Dash and Lily. So congrats, Jodi, and congrats to all of you, because I almost lost this interview, and it's so good. This is one of the first interviews I ever did way back in, like spring of 2019. And she was so nice to be able to take the time to chat with me. So that's why I was so disappointed when my laptop broke and it was gone forever. Or was it 2 months ago? Found that laptop, said, you know what, let me plug it in, and boom. There's a few other interviews that will come out in the next few months, so I'm really happy that I was able to save. But Jodi's is so great. We talked about, obviously, Robocop 3. She even gave me some education on, Asian representation in cinema, because she's been in Hollywood for a while. So she's really seen it all. Striking Distance, she has a really cool role in that movie, the Bruce Willis, when he's the river cop in Pittsburgh. She has a really great story about having to reshoot a scene. She's the scene-stealing role in The Hot Chick. She plays Ling Ling's mom, and just so much more. Heck, she even has a story about Judge Judy. Man, this is a great interview. So what I'll do is in the notes, I'll put Jodi's Instagram so you can give her a follow, and other social media and her IMDb links. And do me a favor, if you're new here, welcome. Great to see you. If you're back, is that a new cologne? It smells great. But without further ado, here is actress Jodi Long.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Yeah, so what I like to do is be able to find out, what got you into, where you're at in your career and the great things you've done over the years.
I thought you were going to ask me about Robocop 3.
Oh, no, I definitely will, but there's a lot more that you've done besides that.
I know.
So where does your story begin? Where did you grow up?
Oh, my goodness. I grew up in New York City. I'm a New York City girl. I was born in Manhattan. And then my parents, I don't know, at some point, I don't know when, probably when I was about 1 or 2, they moved out to Queens, to Woodside. And my parents, I don't know if you know this, but they were vaudevillians.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were showbiz, they sort of did, well, in those days, it was like the nightclubs and like the Palace, and they actually played the Ed Sullivan Show long before I was born. And anyway, yeah, they had a variety act that they kind of traveled around with. And I traveled with them until I was about 5 when I went to kindergarten in Queens.
Wow. Where are some of the places that you traveled to? Just around the States or the...
Yeah. I mean, they played kind of in and around the tri-state area.
Oh, okay.
Because it was, television was, in those days, television, maybe one person had it on the block and everybody went to the TV set there. So people really went to nightclubs and watched variety shows. That was entertainment in those days. So there was a big thing. So they did that. They played, sometimes they were in the Borscht Belt. And then there was a nightclub in New York called the China Doll where they played. It was, focused sort of on Asian themes, even though it was not run by Asian people. And then there was a whole group of nightclubs in San Francisco, which was later called the Chop Suey Circuit. And that really was not all of them, but a lot of them were owned by Asians. And there were nightclubs for, Asian and non-Asian, sort of famous people to go and get this sort of exotic nightclub flavor and acts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, my parents had variety acts, so they sang and they danced, and my father did impressions. In those days, that's what people did, and then they also did jokes. So comedy.
So were you able to watch their acts? Did they do it late at night, or were you able to?
Yeah, I watched their acts. I mean, I don't really remember.
I'm sure you don't.
Because I was a kid, but I was about 4 when they played in San Francisco, which was a really big nightclub. So I remember that very clearly, backstage, the dressing rooms, that I do remember. So it was fun, and then it was before I went to school. So I was there all night until they came home at like 2:00 in the morning.
When did you start like dancing and performing or anything like that?
Well, I pretty much, my dad taught me to tap dance when I was a kid. And then I did my first Broadway show when I was 7. That was directed. And it was only because my father's agent they're looking for a bunch of, Asian kids to sing and dance in this new Broadway show that Sidney Lumet actually directed. So I got the job. And so there I was on Broadway doing a Broadway musical at the age of 7.
At the age of 7, I was running around picking up dandelions and chasing butterflies playing baseball. It's amazing.
Well, I was picking up dandelions and running after butterflies too.
Yeah, but just at night you were on Broadway. That's so neat.
Yeah. So, I mean, it didn't last that long. The show, we went on the road to Philadelphia. I think we were there for a month or 2. And then it came in and we previews in those days, shows used to preview for about a month or 3 weeks. And then we opened to terrible reviews. So we closed right away.
Well, that's great. And then so you did that. Did you continue doing that like through school?
No, my mother said I had to not do that. And, I had to go to school. So I did. And I did, I think one summer I went on the road with my dad. I did Flower Drum Song. I did do that. I'm not making it up. Like I remember that. And then it was when I went to high school, because I was growing up in New York City, I decided to audition for the High School of Performing Arts, Fame, that television show or movie Fame. And so I got into that. And so it was there that I actually decided that I wanted to be a real actress, much to my mother's dismay.
And did you go to school for theater or acting?
Yeah. Well, Performing Arts High School was, I was there in the acting drama department.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I studied acting in high school. I mean, we had academic subjects, usually in the morning. It depended on what grade you were in, but, they sort of flipped it. So sometimes you just did academics in the morning and then you did theater in the afternoon, or, depending, sometimes you did it the other way around. So I had full on, Stanislavski actor studio kind of training when I was in high school.
Wow. So what year is that about?
I think I graduated high school in 1972.
Oh, okay. No, the reason I ask is because on there, I don't know, I'm sure you were in stuff before this because IMDb is never right, but on here they
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
So you can correct me when I say this wrong, but it has your first credit in the TV movie Nurse as Gail.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, wow, okay.
I'm thinking, was that really my first credit? Actually, that's wrong. Actually, okay. I'm pulling up my own IMDb page just to see this because I don't know anymore. I'm looking. Let's see. I guess Rollover. I think I did Rollover first. We shot it first, but I guess they came out backwards. Rollover was released after I shot Nurse, but I did another show which is not on here, and I guess it's because I didn't become a Screen Actors Guild yet. You know, I was still in college.
Oh, okay.
And I was in this thing called Jade Snow, and it was for PBS, or it wasn't really PBS, but it was like a movie about this book, Jade Snow. And James Hong, I don't know if you know him, he's in every movie, you know, he's been in all the movies. He played my father in that movie.
He isn't. I just looked him up. He is in every movie.
He is in every movie.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was my first job. It was because, you know, I was in college, and I was like, oh, do I really want to spend this much money on getting into SAG? It was SAG then, right?
Yeah.
And I decided to just take my chances and wait for the next job that I got. So I'm sure that's why it's not up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So Rollover, I've never seen it before, but that has a pretty good cast. Did you have any scenes with Jane Fonda or Chris Christopherson?
All my scenes were with Chris. He played my boss. I didn't have any scenes with Jane, but she was one of the producers on it. And, you know, I was completely starstruck when I met her. And she was so sweet to me. Really, I mean, that was my first movie ever. I mean, like, you know, movie. I was like, I got a movie. Actually, I did another movie before that, now that I'm thinking about it. And I got cut out of it before it got filmed. And it was called, oh my God, you will know it because I just got to remember the name of the movie. It starred Bill Hurt and Sigourney Weaver. And James Woods was in it. Everybody was in it. I mean, Morgan Freeman was in it. I was supposed to be in it. It was called Eyewitness. I actually was cast in that movie.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Peter Yates, who had done, what's that movie? Breaking Away, which was an amazing movie. He was the director. And my scene was with Bill Hurt. And I would play the wife of this other guy who he had been in the Vietnam War with or something. And anyway, we rehearsed it. I went to the first table read. I mean, it was like amazing. And then Sigourney Weaver knew a friend of mine, and she called her one day and said, I think Jodi's character got cut out of the script.
Wow.
I was like, what? What? It's my first movie. So that was my first movie that I didn't shoot. So, yes. So I was thrilled when I got onto Rollover, and I was on that film for like 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and all my scenes were with Chris as my boss. It was a great cast, actually. I learned a lot, you know. Yeah.
What is it like the first time? So you grew up with, you know, with your parents doing shows. So you were kind of not numb to it. It's still a big moment, but do you remember just being like, wow, I am like,
I've arrived
sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you know, my father always kind of used to say to me, he just couldn't believe like the first time I had an audition, which was for Nowhere to Go But Up, the musical that Sidney Lumet directed. He was like, you do your first audition, you get the job, and you're on Broadway. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's the way it's supposed to go. You know? Yeah. I mean, it hasn't always been like that in my life. So, but it, you know, when you're that young, you don't know any better. And yeah, I guess, I mean, it was a big deal. I just give a little disclaimer. Right before I got Rollover, I was doing another Broadway play as an adult, my first as an adult, and with Kevin Kline. And so I had done that for a year on Broadway. And then I got off of that, and then I went into this movie.
How was working with him?
Oh, he's fantastic. You know, I learned, I mean, I really do say I learned so much, probably almost everything I know about doing comedy, in part from Kevin. You know, I worked with him for a year on that show, and we had a very funny scene. It was a drama, but it had a lot of funny moments in it. And we had a scene right before the end of the first act, and we would get these laughs, and we would come off and talk about it, like at intermission. Like, oh, what do you think about that? And I think you should say that faster, or they didn't hear you there, or you need to say that louder, or whatever, you know. So it was, and I was like the youngest. I had only been out of college for like a year or so. And so, I was like the greenest person in the cast. So Kevin it was great. It was really great. It was really a great education. I've been very lucky. I mean, my father would say that he taught me everything I know about comedy, being a comedy guy. But, in part, it was my dad. But I think a lot of it was what I learned from Kevin in the moment, on stage. And then, of course, watching I Love Lucy reruns as a kid. I mean, she's still my favorite. Lucille Ball.
Yeah, those shows stand up. Like even watching some old like Mary Tyler Moore, like those era, the comedy timing of Dick Van Dyke, all of those shows just still work today.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so that's kind of the deal with that. But yeah, you think, wow, I've arrived. I'm doing a major motion picture here with Jane Fonda. I didn't really know who Chris Christopherson was at the time because I wasn't, I was like, is he an actor? Is he an actor? So, but he was great too. So, it was quite an education for a young actress.
Now, for the rest of the 80s, you had some small parts in movies.
Yeah, I played a lot of newscasters. I'm being serious.
I know. I see it. So it started in the first one I see on here is Splash, and then there's a lot of other ones that you do.
I know. There was like, oh God, how many? I think at one point I just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I was like, I can't play another newscaster. I played a lot of newscasters. They may not be listed on IMDb as newscasters, but they were like Wendy Wong and Amos and Andrew. I was a newscaster. That was a bigger part, but I was still a newscaster.
Is it like you do it once and they see it on your resume or your reel and they're like, okay.
No, what I think it really was in those days, and probably anybody's listening to your podcast now won't even know who I'm talking about, but Connie Chung was really big. She was the Diane Sawyer, or whoever is, big now. And I think people would just say, oh, we need, well, let's get somebody who's Asian because of Connie Chung. And when I went to college, my father had told me at one point, he said, if you're really smart, you should become a newscaster. You should become a journalist and then go into newscasting because that's where the money is. That's what he told me.
Really?
And I was like, Dad, I'm an actress. I don't want to be writing copy and, standing there with my hair done. And I don't know. That just seemed like antithetical to who I was. So I didn't do it. And I would have made a lot of money if I had. And I sure did play a lot of newscasters.
And then you did play a lot of judges too.
Oh, God, yeah. There was that period of judges. Yes, I played lots of newscasters and judges and Korean mothers.
And on here it has, this is like going forward a little bit, but since we're on the topic of judges, were you on Judge Judy?
Yes, I was. That was not as an actress, though. That was as me.
That was on a real case?
That was on a real case. It was my case, actually. And I had gotten bitten by a dog in a dog park. Like he had gone after my dog, and the dog, my dog was on a leash. The dog wasn't. And the dog went after my dog, and they got into a scuffle, and the dog came around, stopped attacking my dog, and bit me.
Oh, wow.
And I was down, and I had to take me to the hospital. I mean, he bit the back of his whole head. He was a Rottweiler, and he had completely put his head around my kneecap.
Ugh.
And punctured the back of my knee underneath, the soft part. And I was really lucky that he didn't puncture whatever it was. The doctor was like, oh my God, if he had just punctured you just slightly to the left of this, it would have been a disaster. So I was lucky, but the dog was never, he wouldn't give me the rabies shot. And I was like, what? Just show me that the dog has been, vaccinated. And it was so bad. Anyway, so I filed a complaint, a suit against him, sort of, whatever you do.
Yeah.
And then I had been talking to a friend who was sort of joking around with me about something. And I get a call one day, and they're like, "This is Jodi Long. We saw this a suit that you have for a dog bite, and blah blah blah. And we'd like to know if you want to be on Judge Judy." And I thought it was my friend, like, playing a joke. Like, I was like, "Paul, stop playing this joke. I know it's you, right?" The guy finally said, "No, this is really the producer of Judge Judy." So what they did in those days, I don't know if they still do it, they probably do. They go down to whatever municipal it is, and they look for cases that are on the books.
Well, I didn't think they could do that.
Yeah, or somebody does it. They research it, and then and they just happen to see mine. And the deal with that is that if you win, and I guess the impetus or the incentive for the person who's being charged or taken to court is that if they lose, Judge Judy pays for it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Those people are pretty good. I've watched that show with my parents for years, and those people look pretty convincing that they're really upset when they lose.
Well, I mean, if they lose because somebody well, I guess they lost.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. But yeah. she paid all my bills. They paid what I had put it in for, the restitution. I wasn't suing him like $4 million or anything. I was just trying to get my medical bills back.
And was the on that same episode, Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols was on there? Was
he? I don't know. Is that what it says on IMDb?
That's what it says on there.
You sure they're not lying?
And I know they could be, but I thought they were lying when your name was on there. So I don't know. I'll have to do some more research on that.
I'm looking. What year was that? I don't see it here.
90. It's under when you go to the bottom and you go under self.
Oh.
So you click on that, it pops up there. Yeah.
Self. Oh, isn't that funny? Oh, I didn't see him. I don't remember that.
I thought it'd be funny if I mentioned that and you're like, "Oh yeah, his dog is the one that bit me."
No. They shot a lot of those things like in like one case after another, so you never really saw anybody else's case, So anyway. All right, enough of Judge Judy. My goodness.
So then you were on you had some guest roles in a lot of shows. Roseanne, Cosby Show, LA Law, Designing Women. Were those little parts that you had, or?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I played, I was a recurring on the Cosby. I mean, I only did 2, but I played Felicia's secretary.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, I'm looking at this stuff. New York Story. Patty Hearst was a really good movie that Paul Schrader directed. And, up until then I was playing, that was a nice part. And then I did Sour Sweet, which is directed by Mike Newell. And that was a really wonderful movie. And I had a big part in that. I was on that movie for about almost 2 months, I think.
Oh, wow.
So those were like the 2 big films, when you're a young actor and you're just doing like these crazy little parts on TV, and then you get that and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
I went to, both movies were in Cannes the next year. So, I went to Cannes. That was fun. We were at Patty Hearst opened, I think we were the opening night actually of the Grand Palais. So, as an actor, you do what you do and you move along and get the jobs. And it was a different time. It was the 80s, 90s, I guess. And, there wasn't a lot of diversity. I mean, if you look up my first real TV show as a series regular was Cafe Americain.
Yeah, I have that written down. Yeah.
Believe it or not, and that was with Sally Bertinelli. We only did one season, but, we did 18 episodes. And then there was a terrible earthquake in LA that year. And so shut down because Warner's, their sets got hit, our set got hit. And that year, my publicist at the time, the big thing was I was the only Asian face on network television.
Really?
Yeah, that's how they were selling me, the publicist. And it was true. It was true. So look how far we've come.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's great. But I mean, how many years later is it? It's 25 years later. And now only really starting to change.
Yeah.
So, and then the next year after that, I did All American Girl with Margaret Cho playing her mom. And we only did 1 year of that too, 18 episodes. But that was the first time there was an Asian family on TV since like the 70s. There was a show called Mr. T and Tina, and Pat Morita was the star of that.
Oh,
and,
really? That's great.
And it was only on for, I think, a half a season or one season too. But that was like in the 70s. So here we were almost 20 years later. And the next Asian family. And then, of course, it wasn't until another 20 some odd years later that there was an Asian family in Sullivan and Son, which is what I did with Steve Byrne. And that was a mixed family. But, what year was that we did that? 2012. So, that's 7 years ago. And then there really wasn't another, on our tail end, came Fresh Off the Boat.
Yeah.
So, you look at that and it's really, it's indicative, and it shows you how things have changed slowly, very slowly. I'm glad they've changed. I think the big change came with, I'm sorry, I'm talking like politically stuff here, but I think it's important. Most people don't think about it, but I think about it because obviously, I've seen the change. But I thought the change started to happen with Sandra Oh's character in Grey's Anatomy, because she just happened to be a woman who just happened to be Asian. She was a doctor who just happened to be Asian. Like, it wasn't really that integral to the story, a little bit, but sort of here and there. And I thought that was really a breakthrough, even more than something like Lost that had, Asian characters on it, but Daniel and Tae Kim and I've forgotten the other woman's name, but they were speaking Korean or whatever they were speaking. I think they were speaking Korean, or was it Japanese? I can't remember. But I can't. But it was like, I'm sorry, everybody else is speaking English on this island. Why are they speaking English?
Yeah.
Right? So, and that wasn't that long ago.
I know.
And it was at the same time that other show with Mossy was on, and James Kyson Lee, and they were speaking, Japanese, and you're like, my God, what planet are these writers on? But it has changed, so I'm really grateful for that. I'm not. Anyway, I've just given you a little Asian American history on television.
Great.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
It should be that way. I know. I don't remember All American Girl. Do you remember what network it was on?
ABC.
That cast is so great. Margaret Cho's hilarious.
Yeah.
She's still doing it. Strong.
Oh, yeah.
B.D. Wong was on that. He must have been really young, and wow.
We all were really young. We celebrated the 25th anniversary last year.
Oh, look at you guys got together?
Well, yeah, sort of. I was working in New York, so I couldn't do it, but some of the cast got together.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah. Anyway, but I'm in touch with Margaret. I love her. She's great.
That's so cool. And then just before that, we'll talk about Robocop 3.
Okay. What do you want to say?
Well, I like those movies. Did you see the movies, like the first one or the second one, before you filmed the third one?
I think I saw the first one because my old friend from New York, Peter Weller, was the original Robocop.
You were friends with Peter Weller?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, all us New York actors know each other.
Yeah,
from a certain era, right? So yeah, I knew Peter just from New York City, kicking around, being an actor.
Yeah.
And so he was in that. I believe I saw the first one. I don't think I saw the second one. And I thought when I got cast in it that Peter was going to be in it, but then of course I got there and he wasn't in it. So that was sort of disappointing. Not that I had any scenes with his character, but
yeah, I was surprised that he wasn't in it. I wonder what happened.
Who knows?
Yeah,
I can't tell you. I can't say.
But yeah, that movie, it had a pretty intense opening scene. It seemed it was you, your husband, Nico. It was really, everything seemed normal, and then like all hell was breaking loose in Detroit.
I remember I dropped the dishes, right? Don't I drop the dishes in there?
Yeah.
Like it blows up and I drop the dishes. And
yep. And that was I don't even know what, I haven't seen that movie in a while. I rewatched to watch your scenes. I didn't have time to watch the whole thing. But so with that movie, I don't know if that's far into the future, but that's how they were like evicting people. Because after the scene, it's like you guys are running outside, they're bulldozing it, and they fall in from the ceiling. It's like a little eviction notice.
Right.
And that movie, I can't give an honest opinion yet, but they had so many people in that movie. Rip Torn.
That, it's so funny you say that because I thought I better go on and see what the heck. I haven't seen that movie since it came out, and that was a long time ago. So I went on the IMDb page like you did.
Yeah.
Now, where is it? I'm looking for it now. Where the heck is it? What year was that?
93.
93. Oh, here it is. So I went on there and I couldn't believe, because I watched the trailer. I was like, I better refresh my memory here. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's Rip Torn. Oh my God, that's Bradley Whitford. You see Bradley Whitford in there?
I know. And it's like a really, yeah.
Like Bradley Whitford and well, there was that gal. Mako was in it because I remember him on set with me, and and then there was CCH Pounder was in it. I remember her being there. Stanley Anderson, who you probably don't know, but he was like a really, really famous actor that worked down at the Arena Stage in Washington, D.C. So I was like, oh my God, Stanley Anderson is in this.
Oh, wow.
And I worked with Daniel Van Bargen. I mean, I knew like Jeff Garlin is in it,
I know.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, he has like a really small role. I think he's like donut jerk or something.
Yeah, and I just did a Curb, and so it's just so funny. And I'm looking at this, and I'm like, oh my God, I worked with John Neshy and Nancy Allen's in it. It's like they had a really great cast, but I think it was a really bad movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So why are you even doing this movie? Oh my God!
It just seemed like all those people were like. Well, Rip Torn was he was acting a lot, way before that. But it's like a lot of the other people are like pretty young. Jeff Garlin must have been. Yeah,
we were all young. I mean, Paul McCrane's in it. I mean, like all these people. I'm like looking at this list, and I'm like, I know all these people. Well, it was a job, and I remember we shot it in Atlanta. I guess it rained a lot, and we were down there forever. That's what I remember. I was like, I probably was supposed to go down for 3 days or 5 days or something. And I think I stayed there for almost 2 weeks because that scene where we're all going on the buses at the end, I mean, this is before CGI.
Yeah.
Like if it was now, they would have just CGI'd the whole thing.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
But we're on the buses and they're taking us away. And that's the last time I see my daughter. And yeah, we can't shoot today because the helicopters, they can't go up, blah, 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 blah. So I had a good time in Atlanta.
And how does that work? When you, for a movie like that, if they say, hey, Jodi, it's going to take 2 days and then it gets extended to 7, 8, you get paid for the time you're there, or is it just?
Oh yeah.
Does that work? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Good.
yeah. And especially, as a young actor, you probably don't have another job somewhere, and you're just like, great, I get more per diem, fantastic.
And then right around then, I don't know if it was before or after you filmed that, you were in with Bruce Willis, Striking Distance.
Yeah, that was pretty soon after, wasn't it? I don't know. Yeah, that was in Pittsburgh. Yeah, we shot that in Pittsburgh. Yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah, that was like the same year. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any scenes with Bruce?
Yeah, most of my scenes were with Bruce because I played like I wouldn't say his best friend, but I played his colleague at the thing. We had to reshoot that. Yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, really? Afterwards, you had to reshoot?
Yeah, they decided that they were going to kill me. It wasn't originally in the script, and then they decided that they were going to kill me, and we had to reshoot that. But we had to shoot it. That he finds me dead in the river, Three Rivers. Yeah, because originally it was called Three Rivers. Is where all the rivers converge in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So how does that phone call go? They say, "Hey, Jodi, we got to reshoot. We got to kill you."
Well, let's see. I was actually, well, they didn't tell me that actually. I was doing, if you look down the IMDb, I was doing Firestorm, that TV movie in Oakland.
Oh, okay.
And so I was working up in Oakland for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. And I get a call from my agent. So they're like, Jodi, they want to do a reshoot with you, and it's going to be in a tank on the Sony lot. I was like, in a tank? What do you mean? They were like, I don't know. You're going to be in like the Esther Williams tank. And I'm like, really? And they were like, yeah, I guess, I don't know. I guess you're going to be swimming or something. I was like, I'm going to be swimming? So I was like, oh my God. And they were like, yeah, they want to point out this thing that you and Bruce are really friends and da da da. So I was like, oh my God. So now I'm in the gym every day because I think I'm going to have to be in a bathing suit, right? To go into the tank at Sony Studios.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how crazy it is as an actor. You just say, oh my God, I'm going to be in a bathing suit. And oh my God, I'm be in a tank. Well, of course I get there and I write like the day before because I'm shooting up there. They have to fly me in, blah, blah, blah. And I get there and I go, well, don't I have to do a costume fitting? And they were like, no. You're going to be in the same clothes that you wore in the movie. I said, you mean my uniform? And they were like, yeah, your uniform. I said, but I thought I was going to be like swimming in a tank. Oh, no, don't worry about it. We got the costume. I was like, okay. So then I get into makeup and they go, so you know what's happening, right? I said, no, I don't know what's happening. What's happening? And they go, oh, well, I said, is there a script? And they were like, no, you're going to be dead. You're going to be dead. We're gonna do dead makeup on you. And what happens is Bruce is gonna find you in the river, but we're shooting it in the tank, and you're gonna be dead. And then when you come up, you're gonna look dead. And that's what we did. I was so disappointed.
Yeah, but that's such an underrated movie. That's a really good movie.
Yeah, that was a good movie. But, I was so disappointed because I thought I was going to have to look really great in a bathing suit. And I was dead.
You're like, all that working out.
Oh, my God. And they kept trying to turn me over, right? And because my hair was really long then, and it kind of still is, but they would turn me over. So, and they have somebody underneath me, like they have a stunt person underneath me that is actually turning me as like Bruce's hand comes in and turns me over. And so my hair kept getting in my face. Like they turn me over and all my hair is being like over my face. Oh Lord. Anyway, this is all your listeners are now hearing what really happens in making movies.
That's that's the behind the scenes stories that they like.
Exactly.
And then the next thing that I personally remember you from, and I wrote in the email, I don't know if she sent it over to you, but my buddy would always quote from The Hot Chick.
Oh yeah. What? Bling bling. You forgot your bling bling.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't believe it has your character's Korean mother. Why wouldn't it say Ling Ling's mom?
Good question. Well, it's funny because they wrote it as Korean mother, and so it was so crazy. I mean, it was such a really fun part, right?
Oh yeah.
So Rob Schneider, he's great, and so he wanted to. I was on the movie for a while. I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. I can't remember. And so the producer's assistant, or his assistant, came up to me and they said, "Rob's making everybody, crew jackets, and we want to know, like, what do you want to put under your, on the name on your jacket?" I said, "Please don't put Korean mother there." I said, "Could you please refrain from putting that there?" So they just put Jodi. But yeah, I think that would have been better than Ling Ling's mother. But I have to tell you, my friends, all their kids at that time, they were all like, 13 and 14. And I was really the bomb for 13, 14-year-old boys. I would end up at dinner parties or whatever at my friends, and all these young boys would come up to me and they go, "Oh, you're Ling Ling's mom." So pretty funny.
No, those scenes are great. Were those the lines that they already had written, or was there any like improvising with some of that?
No, they wrote it. Actually, they wrote it, and they actually wrote me a new scene after I was on set for maybe a day, and they loved the character that I had come up with. So they wrote the scene for me in the lowrider. Nice. When I'm in the car. Yeah. That was all written after I had gotten on set. They were like, "We're going to write you another scene." I was like, "Okay, whatever." And it was funny because the scene was, I'm talking to one of the kids and my daughter, and I say, and tell Lulu, I think was her name, or her girlfriend's name, lay off the chronic. That's what I say to her. And I didn't know what chronic was. I was like, well, first of all, I didn't know what a lowrider was. So I was like, I don't understand. I'm going to be in a what? And they were like, "You're going to be in a lowrider car." I'm like, "What's that?" And so, they had to, explain that to me. And then, they give me this, and I'm like, "I don't understand what chronic means. What does that mean?" And everybody's laughing at me. I don't smoke pot. Well, in those days when I did smoke pot, it was called pot, or grass. But I was like, "What's chronic?" And they were like, "Jodi." Like, "What?" Like, "That's marijuana." I was like, "Oh, really? Why do they call it chronic?" It's so stupid.
And I think the best thing about the character was how animated you made it. Like the body, the mannerisms, like why you were delivering the lines, just was so funny.
Oh, well, thanks. Oh, well, what are you going to do? Right?
So then you were in you had a lot of judge gigs over the years, but I know we touched on it before, but so Sullivan and Son, that was a really funny show. Steve Burns, really funny. And the cast was so great.
Great show. It was a great show. It was really too bad. They had changed our time frame and whatever, the third season. And, we went from a 10 o'clock show to, I don't remember what time. And we lost some viewership, but we had such a devoted following. We tweeted out after every show, during every show. And I mean, people still write me and say, we miss Sullivan and Son on my Twitter feed. And it's really true. And we had such a great cast. I mean, look, besides Steve, Brian Doyle Murray, Dan Loria, Christine Ebersole, myself, we were the old people. And then, Roy Wood Jr., who's now on the Trevor Noah show. And I mean, what a cast. And diverse, it was very diverse and funny, great writing, great cast. But that's what happens, it's television, and it was too bad. But we had 3 great seasons out of that. I'm waiting for the DVD, whatever they call it, come out, because I want to see some of those shows again, because they were really, really funny. And they really wrote for me. The writer producers, every year they'd say, Jodi, what do you want to do?
Oh, that's
and
great.
I go, well, I want to do some physical comedy. So they let me do it, and it was fun. It was really fun.
That's awesome. So, it seemed like at that time TBS had like a lot of comedy shows, and then it seemed like it dwindled down. I don't even know how many comedy shows they have now, or if they have any.
Well, I don't know. I haven't been following them, but I know that I can't get into this so much, but the guy who was heading up TBS when we were there, he left. He went on to another company, and he was replaced. And I think, one of the things they had said to us was they were going to skew younger, whatever that means.
Okay.
And whatever their change up was going to be. But then I don't think they ever really came back to, they just relied on reruns of Big Bang,
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that because that's a very funny show. But at some point, I think people want to see new content, right? There's so much new content all over the place. So, but it's not up to me, it's the TV gods.
Yeah. No, it's great that you mentioned that, because I've talked to 15, 16 people now, and I talked to a gentleman, his name's Kevin Kilner, and I
know Kevin.
Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. So he had a similar story. He was on a CBS show in the early 90s. It was called Almost Perfect on CBS. He was opposite Nancy Travis. Everything went great the first year. And then he goes, we go in for like the second season. We find out that they changed. So he told me it was like they just have to put their hands in it. So he said the first meeting, he sits down with the guy and he's like, you know what? We want to see Nancy start dating other people. And he's like, well, the whole first season's not that. So why would you want to do that? So in the no time, he was off the show, and then I think it was gone. And then maybe like halfway through the second season, but like, it's really disappointing, but you have all those partnerships and the people that you meet filming it, and it's always there, which is great.
Yeah. That's the way it goes. It's a crapshoot. Always a crapshoot. That's show business. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't.
Well, Jodi, thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I'm glad you didn't ask me any questions that I couldn't answer regarding Robocop 3.
Oh, no. Man, Jodi was great. I think she was the first person that really thought I was going to, grill them on the sequel of choice. She was like, oh, I went back and I looked up the IMDb for RoboCop 3. And heck, I even thought you were going to ask me a lot more questions, but that's not how we work here. We talk more about everything else because I love hearing the origin story, and that her family is entertainers. So her growing up was so unique that she learned all of, the comedic timing from her dad, and also Kevin Kline. She has to split it between both because she didn't want to upset her dad. But that was a great chat. So your homework, RoboCop 3. Right now, as I'm recording this, it is free on YouTube. Just watch a few ads. Who cares about ads? Go get something to drink. Just like the good old days with commercials on TV. So don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good night.